Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In an interview on August 16th, President Biden promised to keep military troops in Afghanistan until every American citizen who wanted to leave was able to leave. This did not happen, nor can we confirm the Blinken claim that he sent 19 separate messages to Americans telling them to leave the country since March of this year. Also unclear is the truth of the Biden claim that no military commander recommended leaving behind a residual force, even though all of you, starting courageously with General Scott Miller, have now made it clear that your professional military advice was to do so. On August 26, I formally requested all letters referenced that day by Biden from military commanders advising him on the Afghanistan withdrawal. To date, I haven't received a response. As a 31-year Army veteran myself, grateful to have 4 sons who have served in Iraq, Egypt, the southern border, and Afghanistan, I was immediately skeptical letters existed. President Biden left behind thousands of American citizens, green card holders, brave interpreters, and Afghan media reporters who worked with the United States. Biden was correct when he said the buck stops with him as the person responsible for Afghanistan, as well as for the terrorists that are now crossing the southern border to plan attacks on American neighborhoods. In addition to betraying the American citizens and the U.S. allies in Afghanistan, the Biden decision to have a premature withdrawal left the people of Afghanistan, who had 60,000 troops killed by the Taliban, under the complete control of the Taliban, a barbaric terrorist organization, as General Milley has confirmed, with al-Qaeda. Again, Biden was correct. The buck stops with him. The war has moved from Afghanistan to American neighborhoods, equally endangering our allies of India and Israel. Mr. Secretary, even before the withdrawal, there were frustrating reports of Americans and green card holders being turned away at the gates of the airport or being instructed by the administration to stay away from the airport entirely. While other countries were sending their special forces into Kabul to retrieve their citizens and bring them to the airport, you repeatedly refused to do the same, even after promising in a Pentagon press conference on August 18 that, quote, we're going to get everyone we can possibly to evacuate, and I'll do that as long as we possibly can until the clock runs out or if we run out of capability, end of quote. Mr. Secretary, the American public needs to know, did the clock run out or did you run out of capability? Did you at any point ask President Biden for any more time or more support to enable your forces to stay and complete the full evacuations of American citizens, not leaving them behind as promised? If so, what was the Biden response?
First of all, sir, thank you for your personal service in our military, and thanks for the service of your family members. We remain grateful. On the issue of evacuating American citizens and SIV holders or SIV applicants, this work continues on. We're not finished, and we'll make sure that that we stay focused on this to get out every American citizen that wants to leave and has the right credentials to be able to leave. On the issue of the security at the airport, it was my assessment, and I remain convinced of this, that the risk to mission and risk to force was beyond significant. And had we stayed there much longer, we would have endured continued attacks by ISIS-K and potentially the Taliban. And you know, as each day went forward, as that risk increased, you know, we stood to have aircraft shot down. We stood to have people injured additional people injured on the airfield. And so as we weighed those risks.
Mr. Secretary, I need to have this completed. And in fact, I'll be sending you questions for the record. And I really want to know how many Americans have been left behind. And so we'll get that, but I will be providing questions for the record. But I sadly believe that American families today are at a greater risk of murderous attacks at home than ever before. You talked about the attacks at the airport. No, they're coming here. And that is that in history, we are at greater risk. Suicide bombers can operate from the safe haven of Afghanistan, just as 9/11, and with the open southern borders. The example of May 8th, mass murder of over 80 girls in Kabul should have not been forgotten. The buck stops with 13 murdered Marines. Mr. Biden
gentleman's
is disregarding
time has
the
expired.
military advice,
There's gonna
and
be
I
a
believe
law-
the president should resign.
Mr.
I
I'm
yield
prepared.
back.
I'm prepared to begin
Yeah.
my questions, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Larson is recognized for 5 minutes.
Heads up, I don't have a speech, so I'm launching into my questions right now, so get ready to answer them.